What's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and just kind of looking at how the console and PC market has unraveled and really just evolved throughout this generation. It's been fascinating. We are kind of seeing a shift in power to the point that PlayStation and Xbox especially are looking at the PC platform as a part of their ecosystem. Now, they have different strategies in how they approach PC, but we got a nice reminder today as to why these console makers are just salivating over the PC space, and also why every single publisher needs to take PC gaming seriously. Now we're kind of at that point where we have to ask, is PC gaming taking over the console space? Is this the future? And that's something that we're going to get into today. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. You all are absolutely awesome, and just thank you so much for what you do. Let's just go and get right into things, though, starting off with Assassin's Creed Shadows. It will be out tomorrow on March 20th, and this is probably really one of the most controversial launches of all time. There's been a lot, and I mean a lot of discourse online, and you can even say to some extent this might be the make it or break it game for Ubisoft as a company. A lot is riding on Assassin's Creed Shadows. So obviously, there's a lot of eyes on its reviews. Well, they're currently rolling out right now, and lo and behold, it has an 81 overall score on Metacritic with more than 70 reviews. Now, it could still continue to go up or down. This is not a stable 81 just yet, but for the time being, just to kind of put things into perspective, this would really fall into the middle range of Assassin's Creed games. Out of the 14 mainline titles, it's currently ranked at 6, 7, and 8 because it's tied with the first Assassin's Creed and Assassin's Creed Origins, which also both got an 81. Now, this is a far stretch behind the top three, which, to no surprise, is Assassin's Creed 2 with a 90, Brotherhood at an 89, those two are my personal favorites, and then Black Flag at 88. So, Shadow seems to have put in some solid reviews, but nothing necessarily groundbreaking for the series, which, okay, in most cases, I would say is perfectly fine. But this isn't really one of those times, considering how much is riding on this game for Ubisoft. If this is their savior, I'd want to see a higher score that will really impress customers and to convince them this is a must-play game. And I don't think that that's what we're seeing here. Now, that is my other recommendation, though. If you are on the fence because a lot of the discourse online, it might be best to wait to see how fans perceive Shadows. One thing that I have noticed when it comes to critics this past year is that a lot of them do glaze over some of the more controversial topics. And okay, that's fine and everything, but if that's something that you're concerned about, then you might want to wait and see how fans perceive it as well. Now, here's something just really unique, interesting, and kind of bizarre all at the same time. One thing that I really enjoyed this past year, thanks to channels like Retro Game Core and TechJweep, big shout out to them, they are just absolutely awesome, but I'm talking about emulation consoles. Well, there's a new emulation console on the horizon that's suddenly making waves for its innovative, transforming design. Yeah, check this thing out. This is the One X Sugar, and it aims to be a landscape device that can also fold into a dual screen setup. Now, that is a big thing in the emulation space because the reality is that there's really not a lot of great options to play DS and 3DS games. My personal recommendation would just go out and to get a new 3DS XL and mod it, which is really fairly easy to do. And honestly, that will likely still be my recommendation even after this, but if you wanted an emulation device to maybe get something like better resolution for those type of games and to inject HD packs into them and things like that, then there's really not many great options out there for the time being. Now, we did get a dual screen setup last year from Ioneo, though it was fairly expensive, and I believe it also recently went out of production as well. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. So, yeah, the One X Sugar, which is sporting a new Snapdragon chip and Android as its OS, could fill a bit of a niche. I, however, am expecting this to be at a higher price as well, and admittedly, it doesn't come without its concerns. The first thing that kind of strikes me about its design is that it doesn't appear that its screen can actually tilt, which that could make it feel a little uncomfortable while playing in dual screen, which is kind of the main appeal. Another concern is just because it has so many moving parts, I do wonder about its longevity. Still, though, despite all of that, it is a cool idea. And the fact that we are getting another dual-screen handheld in consecutive years could be a good sign that companies are starting to look at filling that dual-screen niche. Hopefully, we'll start to see some of these other companies like Retroid and Anbernic try their own cheaper versions as well. I mean, I feel like we have more than enough landscape and vertical devices out there, that we got plenty of those. So I'd like to see some real cracks at dual-screen gaming in the emulation world. Either which way, though, pre-orders for the One X Sugar will go live in May over on Indiegogo if you're indeed interested. Okay, so let's just go and get to the news that really seems to be surprising a lot of people online, and that's for Monster Hunter Wilds. So it was just revealed that it was the best-selling game for February in the United States, which, that comes as no surprise whatsoever. But however, if I asked you to predict its best-selling platform, this is where it starts to become a little bit more eye-opening. A lot of people would just kind of assume that it's the PS5 version. But apparently, that's not even close. So this comes from Matt Piscatella over at NPD, or Circana now, and he said Monster Hunter Wilds was the best-selling game of February across each of the PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam ecosystems, with Steam accounting for more than half of the title's total dollar sales. Yeah, I'll go ahead and say that again. More than half of its dollar sales was on Steam. And I'm not saying that this happens with every single game, but this is another telltale sign of just how much PC gaming has grown. It has grown exponentially over the past 5 to 8 years, and that's exactly why we keep seeing PC games break previous records. It seems like every single month we're talking about a new Steam game that broke the publisher's previous record of their peak concurrent high. But then if you look over on consoles, we're not really seeing that same trend. It's been mostly stagnant for PlayStation, with them selling a similar amount of PS5 consoles compared to the PS4 generation over generation. And then if you look at Xbox, they've been trending downward generation over generation. And that's all very important because games are more expensive to make now. So think about it this way. If they're pumping more money into these games, that comes with the idea that they'll be able to, reach more customers, which unfortunately for both Sony and Xbox, they've kind of struggled to reach more players through their consoles this generation. Again, PlayStation is reaching practically the same amount and Xbox is reaching less. So, Monster Hunter Wilds' success on PC is really a prime example on why both Xbox and PlayStation are expanding to PC. That is a growing space that helps them expand. In fact, it really just kind of sounds like Xbox is going to flat out become a PC console hybrid next generation. And we'll see how all that works out for them. Valve is also working on their Steam machines, so, they're going to have some competition there as they try to migrate even more console gamers over to PC. And I think this somewhat explains their mindsets. Companies like Microsoft, they see how gamers are flocking over to PC gaming, so they want a bigger piece of that for their next console. Now, as for PlayStation, I expect them to go in a bit of a different direction. I believe they'll kind of just do more of the same, but they'll also accelerate their PC plans as we progress throughout the decade. But I don't think that they're going to just come out and do day one single-player games anytime soon, just because even though their consoles aren't necessarily growing generation over generation the way that they might want it to, they are still very successful in the console space, and they also make a lot of money on their subscriptions and, third-party games sold on PlayStation hardware. However, the other thing that this news really tells you is why third-party publishers specifically better not ignore PC gaming. For such a long time, there were a lot of developers that skipped over PC, especially when it comes to Japanese developers. But we're now at this point where it very well could be the leading platform for certain games like we're seeing here. In fact, this is a Japanese game. I mean, really, if you just look at the last year, 2 examples of games just exploding onto Steam would be Power World and Wukong. Those games were record-breaking over on Steam. So when I see companies like Take-Two treat PC gamers almost like they're second-class citizens, GTA 6, it's not going to launch day one onto PC, and I view that as a huge mistake. I mean, they'll kind of get away with it just because it's almost impossible for GTA 6 to fail. But again, PC gaming is vital for companies now, especially with these higher budgets, and this is just the latest proof of that. I mean, you can even look into PC gaming handhelds and how that space is evolving, and rapidly at that. Those are still technically a part of the PC gaming world, and is really only going to get better in the coming years as that technology improves. Let me know what you all think about these results, though. Do you think PC gaming is the future? And where do you think consoles will be, let's say, 10 years from now? Now, one last thing before we go. I was recently introduced to a fan-made Pokemon project that I think is incredibly exciting. Now, I'm not going to post any footage on my channel for, copyright-related reasons. I don't know how Nintendo's going to react to this over time, but there's a ton of gameplay out there if you want to check it out. Now, I will go and post some pictures, and this is for Pokemon Gamma Emerald. The entire idea for this game is to transform Pokemon Emerald into an HD 2D world, and it looks absolutely stunning. The person who's working on this game has been making great strides this past few months, and they post frequent video updates. Again, just search it up on YouTube. There's a lot of footage out there, but this is quietly, I'd say, a more exciting remake than really anything the Pokemon Company has actually made themselves. I mean, if you compare this to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, as one such example, Gamma Emerald looks 10 times better than those games. This looks absolutely amazing. It also has some quality of life improvements as well, so that's nice to see. And I'd say it's almost frustrating that fans like this are putting more effort in than a company that makes billions and billions of dollars every year. In fact, fans have actually been requesting an HD 2D Pokemon game. This is not a new idea. It's just a very well executed idea. So, this is kind of that dream game that Pokemon fans have been asking for really pretty much since Octopath Traveler was revealed. So, yeah, check it out over on YouTube. This project looks pretty amazing. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.